Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Daniel Ridenhour from Winthrop University. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You guys are down there in Rock Hill, South Carolina, lovely part of the country. I'll be driving through the other eastern part of the state here in a week or so, driving north. But let's talk a little bit about the recruiting side of things for you guys as a Division I school. Obviously, today is a big day, so maybe you've been busy picking up the phone to those rising juniors who are allowed to be contacted today. But in terms of recruiting, when do you really start putting kids on a list, looking at players? What year in high school are they? When does that process really get started for the guys you're bringing into your program?
Obviously, today's June 15th, first day that you can contact a junior. I'm a little bit different in that I think every day for a high school student's an important day. And I think a lot of coaches and a lot of families have circled this date as like, if you don't get called or you don't get contacted, you're not going to get recruited. So we intentionally don't contact anybody today. That might sound crazy. I think mental health's more important than anything. And I don't want to stress people out with calls and emails. We're going to send an email out to all the juniors that are in our database that we haven't been able to communicate with before, basically saying, here's a questionnaire, and we've identified you, and we'd like to start some conversations, but it's not the end all be all for us June 15th today for juniors.
Amen to that. Yeah, just what I've seen so far on Twitter this morning is just a little bit nutty, but so you talk about players that you maybe in terms of identifying and getting them in your database. So right. What are some of like the can't miss events that you go to? Where are you doing a lot of that identification process, and how does that all work?
So we try to attend as many ECNL events as possible, MLS Next events. I still think it's important to try to get to USYS events. There's myself and one assistant, so it's not like our staff's massive now. We previously had, two assistant coaches that were on the road recruiting a head coach, and obviously COVID, there's things that happen and positions are eliminated for the time being. But I think it's important to try to get to the ECNL events, MLS Next, and any USYS event we can get to. Obviously, regionally, locally, there's a lot of club teams in our area. We try to get to as many games as possible. I'm going to go to a game tonight. And we're in an area of the country where we get to see a lot of different teams kind of come through. Being in Charlotte, there's usually a national event in Greenville every year with ECNL, MLS events. We're in Baltimore this year. That's not terribly far away, so we can get around to see as many players as we can, especially in the eastern part of the United States.
No, that's great. Well, what about camps? How does that fit into your equation, whether they're your own camps or your staff at other camps?
So my assistant tries to hit 3 or 4 certain camps that he's been going to since was previously a head coach at a junior college. So he's built relationships with guys where he's going to go work some of their camps this summer. We do one-day ID camps. We previously did an overnight camp here, but with COVID, they've still not really open it back up to us having people in dorms and whatnot, which is fine. So we do one-day ID camps. We try to cap it at 30, and that's 4 goalkeepers and then 26 field players. I think it's important that when you come to an ID camp, you're in our environment. We basically put players through a full training session in the morning. 2 hours, give them a long enough break where they get something to eat. We do a Q&A session, and then, we come back and we evaluate them in games. We do video both sessions, and I think it's important that we provide that video to kids where they can then use that as a tool for themselves. So we host 4 of those throughout the year. We host 2 in the summer, 1 in the fall, and then 1 in the winter, spring months. I think last year we had 31 guys on our roster. 15 of the 31 players we had at camp. My previous 2 assistants, Kyle Kenny and Phil Heinsohn. Phil Heinsohn was our associate head coach. He did a great job, and making sure we would get guys in that were get into camp that we really had a need to see. And Kyle was the same way when Phil stepped away. We were bringing guys into camp that we had a strong desire to build relationships with. And we had a bunch of guys that would come, 2-3 camps. And if they're investing their time in us and we're investing our time in them, we were able to build some pretty strong relationships. And they got to know us and we get to know them. And it's, when you got 15 guys on your roster that have been at camp, that it says something about, at least I hope it says something about what we're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned evaluations at camp, but when you're evaluating players, whether it's at camp or an ECNL showcase or anything, kind of what's on that evaluation list? What boxes are you looking for kids to tick, whether that's on the field or off the field stuff?
That is a major loaded question. So we have a recruiting matrix for, let's just say, positions.
Okay.
So we've got the position, specific criteria that we're kind of making notes of. If as a center back, are they good in the air? Can they defend? What's their obviously we're looking at the physical part of the game. How do they read the game? So each position kind of has some different metrics that we're looking at. We're kind of ranking. We've got an internal ranking system that we do within the staff, and then we go back and look at if there's games that have been filmed that we know they're filmed, and there's a kid we made note of, we'll go back and watch them. But basically, when we're watching kids, it's a lot of what's your body language like, how do you react in, what's your emotional and mental state like, how do you speak to your teammates, how do you speak with the referee, what's your relationship like with your coach? If you're subbed out, or when players come off, they're usually not going to be happy, but are you positive, or are you a negative human being? I will sit occasionally, and I don't like to be near their parents, but occasionally I'll sit where I can hear parents and families, and not that we're recruiting mom and dad, but we're definitely listening to some of the comments that mom and dad are making, because if I hear some of that from the sideline, and then I'm not going to hopefully have to deal with that in a college environment, but I don't want that bleeding into our environment. So I think recruiting is obviously watching the player, trying to understand, hey, do they fit your system? Do they fit what you want? Do they technically have the components? Do they tactically have the components? Do they physically have the components? But I think that the human aspect is probably, I don't want to say it's weighted more, but it's probably just as important as all the other things combined.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms, we talked about camps and tournaments locally, but you've got a handful of international players on the roster right now. How does international recruiting kind of factor into your overall looks each year?
Basically building, it comes back to relationships. We've built our previous head coach, the gaffer, Rich Posapenko. He had, when I came in 2004, he had some good contacts and relationships built. We, hopefully continue to develop those, build new relationships with contacts in different recruiting agencies, former players. I'm trying to think, there's not a current player. There's probably 5 guys that I didn't see play live, and that includes the international players. So we've seen most of the guys play live. The incoming class, we haven't seen as many of them play live, just with the COVID situation and being able to get out and recruit internationally. Our university doesn't want a whole roster of international players, but there's they bring a different element as far as not just being on the field, but they bring a different perspective to the classroom and a bit different perspective to, the global view, being in a classroom with students from all over, South Carolina, Southeast, and the international. So we're never going to have a whole roster of internationals, but they certainly help our roster. They help our team. They're typically a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and they've been playing in in some cases senior men's football for, a year to 2.5 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's,
Yeah.
I mean, no. and we look, I mean, I could recruit more internationals. And we've had more at times from different countries, but I think we have a good balance right now within our group.
Yeah, no, that's good. Now the big question that every kid and parent has is around the dollars and cents of things, right? So I don't need specifics, anything like that, but can you just give us a sense of what the academic and athletic financial aid situation it is, cost of going to Winthrop, that kind of thing, and what maybe an average player would be kind of situation they'd be walking into from a cost perspective?
Right. So I'm gonna have to get specific here just because.
Go right ahead. Up to you.
So Winthrop's a state school. There's different avenues that you can find funding. Obviously academics, athletics, and then if you're an in-state student, there's the potential for you to qualify for academic money through the lottery system that we have here. So there's the in-state cost is around 27, 28. Out-of-state cost is somewhere between 41 and 42. We recruit in-state students because the recruiting dollars go a little bit further. We do try to recruit in-state. I think it's important. There's 9 Division I schools in South Carolina, and there's 4 or 5 major cities. So it's not like there's as much talent to go around to 9 schools. So obviously, it is harder to recruit kids from our own state at the level that we need to have them at. So you can meet certain criteria at academics. So 3.0, certain GPA, certain SAT score, you can qualify for money, both in-state and out-of-state. We are very fortunate that we have what we call an out-of-state grant. You can get that through academics or athletics. So if you get an academic scholarship and you're out-of-state student, then you qualify for an in-state waiver, an out-of-state grant, which is essentially about 37% of a scholarship right off the top. It's essentially a coupon. We can give one from athletics as well. There's some stipulations as far as like scholarship. We have to give a minimum scholarship to trigger that. But your in-state student from South Carolina, their average, they're probably somewhere between $7,000 and $12,000. And then the out-of-state kids, international kids, it kind of varies, but I've never really done an average, but you're probably looking at somewhere between 15 and 25 spend to out of pocket.
All right, so that's not bad at all for a really good Division I academic institution. So let's talk a little bit more then about the school. Some folks may or may not be familiar with Winthrop.
Yeah.
So you've been there a decent bit of time. So give me some of the awesome things about your school that I'm not going to find just by clicking around the website.
Well, I think the first thing that's awesome about the school is we're in a great location. The location is, I think it's one of the best places to be especially in the Southeast. We're right outside of Charlotte. Don't want to say we're a bedroom community, but Rock Hill is a growing community. We're 25 minutes from the Charlotte airport. We're 25 minutes from uptown. So probably our location is a big factor and a big pull for a lot of students, especially post-grad, because they look at opportunities in the finance sector in Charlotte. Charlotte is it's the banking capital outside of New York in the United States. There's a laundry list of Fortune 500 companies and banks that are here in Charlotte, so that helps. I think the other thing that's interesting or people wouldn't know is Rock Hill is a sports town. We call it Football City USA. It's the wrong football, but there's a lot of guys that have played in the NFL from Rock Hill. The city invests a lot of money in infrastructure for athletic facilities. We host the U.S. Disc Golf Championships every year on our campus. Last year for the Saturday event, there was 12,000 people on our athletic facility. Live stream, there's a $100,000 purse. So if you're good at disc golf, I mean, these guys are pros. I mean,
Yeah.
they're really, really impressive. But they're great people that come, and they add a lot to our community. So there's just different things that are in Rock Hill that you get here and you're like, oh, they have this and that. We have a velodrome, we have a BMX. We're hosting the BMX World Championships this year for I think the third time in 7 or 8 years, which is pretty cool. We built the city built an indoor sports and event center that has drawn big time college basketball games. We had Florida State and South Carolina came up and played a game here this past fall against a thing. Rock Hill's known as there's a city, no room for racism. There was an incident back in the 60s, the Friendship 9. It's a really important part of the history of Rock Hill. And there was nine young men that sat at a counter. They didn't move and they got arrested and they stayed in jail for a month. But that was during the civil rights movement. And I think that's a part of our history that's, something that we can learn from. And those gentlemen are, some of them are still here in Rock Hill and they speak quite regularly to groups. And I think that's they've been a real positive influence in our community, the Friendship 9, and that incident has kind of probably brought Rock Hill at times into the national conversation with some things.
No, that's good stuff. Well, in terms of students coming to the school and needing to balance their academics and their athletics, how do your players do that? What kind of support systems are there in place to make sure they succeed in the classroom as well as on the field?
So we have a full-time athletic academic advisor, Claire Mooney Melvin, and I wouldn't trade her for anybody. She's unbelievable. She's got a staff of a couple of grad assistants that work with her, and incoming students, freshmen are required 6 hours of required study hall. That's pretty typical probably at most places. Our transfers are looked at a little bit different depending on how their GPA is coming in. Our team GPA this past year was a 3.31 for the year. So it's not like, most of our guys are, achievers. There are not a lot of guys that are below a 3.0. There's academic support. There's a math lab on campus. There's a writing lab on campus. So if you're struggling, you can go to those labs and get help from other people outside of the athletic department as well. We do provide tutors. We don't have tutors for ancient Sanskrit or anything, but as long as you're taking a class that we can get a tutor for you, you can get a tutor. We tell most of the guys when they come in, and I'm a really just transparent, straight up person. 98% of the professors at this university, they're going to give you their cell number. They're going to tell you to call them. They're going to tell you to text them if you have an issue. They really care about students. They want to make sure the students are successful. They want to make sure that they, it's not just, lip service. The teacher to, faculty to teacher student ratio is like 14 or 15 to 1. So you're not in these massive classes. Now you're going to have some classes that are, 40 students, but most of them are smaller. Teachers are going to want to know who you are. That if you're not in class, they're going to know. We tell most of the guys, like, if you're struggling, go find a mirror and go talk to yourself and say, what am I doing wrong to not be successful? Because everything's here for you to be successful. Most of the time it's on a student athlete for their, lack of attempt, their lack of focus, their lack of time management. And I don't know all our teams' GPAs, but I would say if there's any student athlete that's struggling at Winthrop, it's probably them, and it's not the university or the teacher or our academic support.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in terms of class time and practice time, what does that look like for men's soccer in terms of when are they usually practicing, when are they usually going to class, et cetera?
So the guys don't like it, but we practice in the morning. I'm an early riser, so we're up, and our guys, we train from 8:30 to 10:30 every day. It's once I think they get here and they get into the routine of getting to training, 8:30 in the morning, and we're going. you've got the rest of the day to get to class. You've got rest of the day to study. A lot of the times we were going in the afternoon, and it was like, guys have been in class. They've kind of had the weight of the day on them, and then we get to training and it's not as sharp. Most of our training sessions are really, really sharp in the morning. You have your odd day where, guys are struggling to roll out of bed, but so most of the guys are, training with 8:30 to 10:30, and then they start class between 11 and 12. We'll have a lot of guys take class from 11 to about 5. There's occasionally guys that will take one night class a week. And we're not the largest university, in the United States, so we don't have as many class offerings. Do we have guys that miss training or have to leave training at times and come later? Yeah, but we just work around it. We just understand that that's part of being a student athlete, is like, this is our training block, but it's not going to be perfect for every guy.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team, the soccer side of things. You mentioned a roster size of 31. Is that kind of what you aim for each year, or is kind of COVID thrown that off, or what's your normal ideal roster size?
It's funny you ask. So we're usually between 28 and 30.
Okay.
We've kind of come into, in the past 96 hours, we've come into like 5 players that we didn't think were even in the picture. So we're going to have a larger roster this year than we'll have ever had. I don't see it staying like that, because I don't have to then, for the 23 group, we have 11 seniors this year. The COVID, the way it's worked out, everybody's essentially got an extra year. Most of our guys are going to choose to, we got a couple guys that have even 2 years left. So if they've got 2 years left, we're actually going to encourage them to go into the transfer portal August the 1st, so we can help them get somewhere, because they don't want to get 2 degrees from Winthrop. And I have absolutely zero problem with that. I would actually encourage you, if you're going to get 2 degrees, you don't want to get the same degree as an undergrad and a grad school. So we actually had 2 guys this year that did the same thing. One's going to George Washington, and one is going to James Madison. I think he's going to Madison to get a master's degree. So
I hope Jonesy treats him well over there at GW.
So and he actually graduated in 3 years. Great kid.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, Coach, I got 2 years left. He's like, I want to get a grad school. And I was like, go in the portal. And he was like, seriously? And I was like, yeah, let's get you in there. Let's start having conversations with coaches. And we were talking about this in the fall. And he was like, this is crazy. And I said, yeah, but you're in the process. You're having to kind of re-recruit yourself, market yourself. And so, and I think those conversations are important to have. So our roster size is going to be larger this year, but I think 28 to 30 is probably where we should be. It'll probably be 34, 35 this year. But when we lose 11 seniors next year, we won't now have to recruit, 10 or 11 guys. We'll recruit 4 or 5 guys.
Right.
And it's looking at our board, I think it's right now the split's like 11, 8, 8, and 6. So there's some balance apart from that top group.
That's good.
That's just how it's worked out.
Yeah.
So COVID was not working through all that has not been fun. Everybody's either +1 or +2 or
it's definitely thrown things off. Every coach I've talked to has had kind of the same issues. So it's nothing unique. You mentioned having the one assistant. How would you kind of describe both yours and his, your kind of style of coaching, the style of play, what you guys are trying to do on the field as a team?
I should correct myself. We do have a second assistant. He's a volunteer goalkeeper coach, 3 days a week with our goalkeepers. He works for a company, a major international distributor, and his team's in Brazil, but he lives here. So he's there with that guy, the goalkeepers, 3 days a week. So Zane and I are pretty much, we're positional play guys. I wasn't a positional play guy until about probably 3 or 4 years ago. And it's you have different staffs and different ideas. And our previous staff was, they were great guys and great human beings. And One of them went to the club world, and one of them, ended up going to an ACC program in a different role, and I was really happy for him. So Zane's been a head coach at a division, at a junior college program for men and women. He and I kind of see the game similar. We want to have the ball. Everybody says that, but we want to have the ball. We want to run less when we have the ball. We want to be able to run more when we don't have the ball. So when we have the ball, it's kind of our opportunity to rest and create chances. Is it going to be like that every game? No. You're going to come against teams that have, better players, higher level. But we try to play. We want to try to, throw numbers forward, try to transitionally be able to press and defend. And if not, we try to get back into a mid block to a low block if we need. I've gone away from really just playing out and out counterattack. But I think your philosophy, everybody's like, what system do you play? I'm like, a system is just a bunch of numbers on a sheet. It's going to be kind of fluid throughout a soccer match. You're going to have 2 guys in the back. Sometimes you're going to have 3 guys in the back. Sometimes you're going to have 5 guys in the back. Sometimes you're going to have, 4 strikers or 5 strikers, depending on how you set yourself up. So I think our thing is more like principles of play. Like, we want to try to play forward. We want to have guys running forward. We want to, if there's space, we want to be able to bounce the ball back if you're not on the half turn. When we defend, we want to make sure that we're pressing as a group, and it's not just one person and the next guy. So I think the principles are more important than just saying, hey, look, this is, we're 4-3-3 or 3-4-3 or 4-4-2. We want guys that are technically able to play, that are tactically have an eye for the game, and that physically can obviously do the work. But I think I'm a play. I think I'm a player's coach. I like to enjoy training. Like, we get to coach college soccer. Guys get to play college soccer. It's a privilege. It's not a right. So when we go out to training, we should, are there days that are going to be more challenging? Yeah. But we want to go out to training and actually enjoy it, and it should be fun. And, guys should be laughing and when they need to laugh, and they need to be serious when they need to be serious. But I don't take myself too serious as a human being as far as a college soccer coach. Like, I'm coaching soccer. It's not like I'm, it's not like I'm a doctor and I'm someone's on an operating table. I think it's important that we connect with players as far as, on a daily basis where they're at with their, mental mindset. I think that's probably the most important thing going on right now in college athletics is making sure players and student athletes are in the right frame of mind, and they're, there's many different factors to, when I was going to college, we didn't have cell phones. Like, not everything was recorded. It was, you weren't looking for affirmation from likes and, likes and hearts or whatever it is on Instagram where you're just, I want people to be engaged and not just living vicariously through a phone or a machine. That's not real life. So we try to get the guys into a situation where they can enjoy training. It's a space that's safe and they can have fun, and like, they're going to say some things that, privately they might not say out loud, but there's things that, I'll have conversations with the guys that they're going to tell me some stuff that they might not tell other people. And that stays between us, but everything should be set up for us, for Zane and I, to be able to challenge guys to get better, but to develop not just as soccer players, but as young men.
Absolutely love that. Well, Coach, you've been gracious with your time. We've covered a lot of ground. Don't want to keep you, but last question, which I always end on, is what didn't we cover? What else is there you want to talk about, whether it's soccer related, school related, or anything else?
Oh, wow.
Floor is yours.
That's again, you just open it up. I think everyone needs to realize that the transfer portal is a real thing, and it is changing the way high school student athletes are going to get recruited, right or wrong. And is it going to be this way forever? I don't know. I can't answer that. But the transfer portal, it affords coaches the ability to, June 15th for me today it's just another day. And I know junior parents are going to say, well, that coach is crazy. It's like, look, you're going to recruit a junior in high school and you're going to start communicating with them, build a relationship with them. And there's a guy that goes into the portal who's 22 years old and has got 2 years of eligibility left and has played 50 games or 40 games in a 2-year span. And they have a lot of interest in your school. You have to weigh like, okay, what's going to be better for my program at that time? And again, I'm really transparent. Like, it's tough to say no to a 22-year-old kid that's had 2 years compared to a 17 or 18-year-old kid coming in, young man or young woman that's not as far along as they're in their soccer development. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic, and probably in the next 3 years, to see where the transfer portal goes. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with name, image, and likeness for soccer players, because I think there's going to be it's arrived, and I think it's going to be even more prevalent. I mean, we have guys on our team that have endorsement deals, and they've got these things, and they have to go through the right channels to get the, and they're doing it the right way within the laws of the state of South Carolina. But I mean, there's guys that they're not making tons of money, but they're making a little bit. And do I think they should be able to do that? Absolutely. But I think those are two big things: the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. And it's been talked about a lot from outside of the college soccer realm, but I think it's even more prevalent in college soccer. And the transfer portal is basically opened up what was already happening before. I mean, college soccer we were probably men's side. It was probably, the percentage wise, it was probably always a high transfer sport. Now it's just now in the open. And it makes it like, it's a little bit easier. So it's not all the backdoor dealings. It's just more transparent. So those are two things that I would say. I mean, I think the last thing I would say is, anybody that's watching this, that's a young person that's going to want to get recruited, you be your own salesperson. I mean, this is I don't want to say it's a job interview, but you're interviewing yourself, but you're also interviewing the schools that you're going to. Like, you're going to come to Winthrop, or you're going to go to school X, A, B, or C, and you're going to like the coaching staff, or you're not going to like the coaching staff. And you need to be the one directing your search. It doesn't need to be your mom or your dad. Take ownership of it. Because when you get to campus, we're not coaching mom or dad. We're coaching you, and we're developing you as a human. And we want you to be invested in it. And, the worst thing you can do is have mom or dad email or come on a visit, and the next thing you know, mom or dad are the only people asking questions, and you're on your phone. Like, take a genuine interest in the schools, and not every school is going to be for you. So I'd always tell people, like, there's a school for everybody to play at. It just might not be the school that you necessarily want to play at. So you've got to decide, like, academically, is it the right fit for me? Athletically, is the right fit for me? Socially, is it the right fit for me? Because I mean, even on my roster right now, I mean, I've got guys that are 100% invested in athletics and they want to play at the next level. And then I've got other guys on our roster that they're really great kids and they're good players, but they're not, their interests are not just the soccer part. They're more interested in the academic and social part, and soccer is part of it. And I mean, we're at a mid-major Division I program, and that still happens here. So just make sure that you're invested in your own process. That's what I would say.
Great advice, Coach. And I really appreciate the time. We wish you the best of luck in this fall season. And if you ever get down to IMG or Bradenton area for recruiting, give me a shout. We'll grab a beverage of some kind. All right.
Sounds good.
All right.
This, by the way, it's a monster.
Yes. So, don't worry. That's all right. Yeah. I saw the logo.
I was just making sure.
There won't be any issues when this goes live. So.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks,
Thank you
Coach.
very much.
Yep.